Republican and right-wing media in general is so crazy. They just come up to Trump and they're like, Mr. God King Trump, sir, it seems you are the greatest president of all time, and everybody knows it, and the naysayers are actually just simply haters. What do you have to say about that? Like, that's not a question, dude. I barely heard it over the gargling noises that you were making while you were spitting on it. Trump goes after Newsome, says deportations are going very well.
Everybody, thank you very much. Thank you. North Carolina, it's been a horrible thing the way that's been allowed to fester, and we're going to get it fixed up. Should have been done months ago from the hurricane that took place almost 4 months ago. North Carolina's been treated very badly, so we're stopping there, and we're going to then go to Los Angeles and take a look at a fire that could have been put out if they let the water flow, but they didn't let the water flow, and they still haven't for whatever reason. So I think we're going to have a very interesting time. I think many of you are going with us. If you'd like to have a ride on the plane, we'd love to give it to you. I don't know. Is he going? Is he going? I don't know. I mean, I really don't. You know, because if he's going to be there, it would be cheaper, but I didn't invite him. Somebody did. Look, whatever it is, it is. He's a good man. I don't know what's going to happen. You never know in those things, but Pete's a very, very good man. I hope he makes it. I hope he makes it. I was very surprised that Collins and Murkowski would do that. And, of course, Mitch is always a no vote, I guess. That's Mitch a no vote? How about Mitch? Huh? He what? Let's see what happens. I did a big trip for the March for Life, and we look forward to seeing it. I'm going to be watching it, and J.D. Vance, our vice president, is there, and he's going to be representing us very well, taking place in a little while. And other than being a little bit cold, it's a beautiful day.
I see now what you were saying about Republicans campaigning all the time because Trump is constantly doing politics, even in situations like these that are theoretically supposed to be apolitical. So, yes, but also what I mean by that when they campaign all the time is not just this, right? Because what Trump is doing here in terms of like using normal government functions as a way to campaign is a little bit of a political faux pas. What I mean when I say Republicans campaign year round is something a little bit different than that. I'm talking about like the key issues that they care about. Republicans will never stop the faucet of propaganda lying about certain things, certain issues, basically that they consider very important for their base to fully be on board with. Immigration, right? They have to, with regular frequency, lie about undocumented migrants presenting a threat. They have to do it over and over and over again, and that plays a role in their agenda. Now, part of that is because they know that, like, if they can get their base to believe that undocumented migrants are responsible for a massive amount of crimes, then they have a marginalized population that they can point the finger at, blame at. They can want to come over for breakfast. What, to your place? No, I'm streaming. I'm doing news for like the first 3-4 hours. Austin, I can't. There's no better time to say this than today. So the owner of TDA Gang's apartment just had another apartment seized by the city of Denver, the first in history. Denver shuts down apartment building, a severe health hazard. Wait, CBZ management again? Wait, another Trendaragua managed apartment? I'm so confused. I'm confused. Does this mean that Trendaragua also took over this apartment complex as well? Denver and Aurora are different cities? No, I know that. I'm being sarcastic, chat. It's the same management company, surprisingly enough. I wonder why.
We're all for it. In fact, as you know, I just signed a pardon, and in the pardon we released 23 people that were unjustly put in, having to do with pro-life, and they will be released, and they'll be out very shortly. It was disgraceful what happened. That was a persecution.
Will you give Italy a break on terrorists?
Well, I like her very much. Let's see what happens. Have a good time. Everybody thought I was going to California. I said, no, I'm stopping in North Carolina first because they've been abused by what's happened. I mean, it's terrible. It should have been done. It should have been, a lot of things should have happened that didn't happen. So we're here. We're going to fix it out. We're working with the gentleman behind me, and you know who they are, and we're going to fix it. And we're going to fix it as fast as you can. It's a massive amount of damage. FEMA has really let us down, let the country down, and I don't know if that's Biden's fault or whose fault it is, but we're going to take over and we're going to do a good job. We're going to assign Mr. Watley, who's fantastic, frankly, and the governor and everybody else that's going to work. We're going to supply the money, supply a lot of the money. Maybe you have to chip in something. You'll chip in a little something, like maybe 25% or whatever. But we're going to get it done as quickly as we can. And we want to take care of the people of North Carolina. It's so interesting. Everybody's talking about California, and that's a mess. But I said, I'm not going to California until I stop in North Carolina. So here we are. We're going to go visit the site, and we're going to work with probably 3 of the congressmen, Republican congressmen, who've been fantastic, whose areas have been affected, and with Michael Watley, the governor, and whoever else is, we decide to get involved. Probably less FEMA, because FEMA just hasn't done the job. And we're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. I like, frankly, the concept when North Carolina gets hit, the governor takes care of it. When Florida gets hit, the governor takes care of it, meaning the state takes care of it. To have a group of people come in from an area that don't even know where they're going in order to solve immediately a problem is something that never worked for me. But this is probably one of the best examples.
This is truly an insane thing to say, I think. Like the idea that there shouldn't be federal disaster management is truly crazy. And it will actually cook red states. I don't know why. I don't know what he's thinking when he says stuff like this. What happens in New Orleans? You know what I mean? I think he wants to privatize FEMA. Thinking it's just Homer's symbol monkey in there. No, you don't have to be particularly brilliant to undermine what remains of the American government's competence. Okay? I'm not saying he's brilliant, and I'm not saying that he's doing this in an incredibly smart way or anything like that. I mean, the machine is designed in a way that austerity followed by privatization is always taking place, and he just gets to control the reins and market the process, and he's going to do that well, because as long as he can keep people paying attention, to whatever he wants them to pay attention to, trans people or undocumented immigrants or whatever, that are supposedly responsible for all of the issues that you're facing in American society, he can advocate to basically undermine FEMA, something that conservatives have wanted for quite some time, and then eventually down the line they can just completely privatize it. FEMA is already largely privatized, utilities, private insurance, etc. True.
Examples of it not working, and there's been some others like in Louisiana, etc.
Do you think Trump actually thinks he's doing something good with his policies? I don't. Sure, he probably does. Yeah, I think Republicans at the end of the day don't think that they're evil. I don't think anyone thinks that they're evil. You know what I mean?
So we're going to be doing something on FEMA that I think most people agree. I'd like to see the states take care of disasters. Let the state take care of the tornadoes and the hurricanes and all of the other things that happen. And I think you're going to find it a lot less expensive. You'll do it for less than half, and you're going to get a lot quicker response. So that seems to be the recommendation, but we'll be making that recommendation over the next couple of weeks. We're going to go to the site now, and we're going to figure out a plan for really demolition and cleaning, because not a lot's been done, and we're very disappointed in the Biden administration, but we're going to make up for lost time. And I said I'd do that. This is about the earliest we could possibly be here, and we're honored to be here. This has been a great state. They're great people, and they've really been mishandled. But it's all, this group is going to be great, and we're going to get it taken care of. Any questions?
How will you respond?
Do you expect to ask Congress for additional aid for North Carolina and California?
It'll be direct. In other words, the aid will go through us. So rather than going through FEMA, it will go through us. And I think maybe this is a good place to start. Because, and in all fairness to the governor, and in all fairness to everybody else, FEMA was not on the ball. And we're going to turn it all around. Yes.
A lot of Americans think that this is symbolic of what your campaign was all about. America first, putting your priorities to Americans, even going to California where their policies might have been one of the biggest reasons why they've had these problems. But you're putting the American people first. Your thoughts on that?
This is Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, by the way. If you want to understand how much the situation has devolved, that is Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, who I believe works at One America News Network. It's so cool that right-wing reporters, like even Democrats don't do this. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure. Liberal media lies. Liberal media lies all the time. Liberal media also omits key details that you can see with your own two eyes, like Biden's diminished brain capacity. But even liberal media doesn't go like, Mr. Biden, sir, it seems that you have an incredible stroke game. What do you have to say about that? Right? Like, this is the Republican and right-wing media in general is so crazy because they just come up to Trump and they're like, Mr. God King Trump, sir, it seems you are the greatest president of all time and everybody knows it. And the naysayers are actually just simply haters. What do you have to say about that? Like, that's not a question, dude. I barely heard it over the gargling noises that you were, that you were making while you were spitting on it. It's crazy. It doesn't make, like, thank you. Thank you for the journalism, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend.
We are. But thank you. I like that question. Boy, I want more.
Well, dude, look at that. Yeah, he loves it.
Questions like that. That's even a statement. Thank you very much. He's a good man, that guy. And he's also a very professional reporter, I have to say. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're putting America first. We're putting, in this case, North Carolina and California. We're going to do a good job in California. That is a disaster like, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like it, frankly. They say the biggest in the history of California. I think, has anything bigger than that happened in the whole country ever? Looks like, I don't want to say what it looks like, but you know what I'm going to say. It looks like something hit it, and we won't talk about what.
You're joking, right? The scripted questions, list of questions they won't answer, softballs about Biden's favorite ice cream, to say it's not done by both sides a joke. Dude, in a longer interview that Biden gave very limited interviews. And of course they control it. And so does Donald Trump. Every politician, unfortunately, has a tremendous amount of power when they're giving interviews, because what our media does now is access journalism. Okay. But as far as like the way that even liberal media operates, they don't simply, they'll ask softball questions. Yes. Like in between some other questions that they're asking that are within the confines of permissibility, right? Within whatever the PR people have decided is acceptable to ask. But the equivalent of this on the Biden camp would literally be like a CNN journalist coming in and being like, sir, like, instead of omitting the fact that his brain capacity is diminished, which they are doing, which I think is a lie by omission, it would literally be asking a question to Biden as like Jake Tapper asked a question to Biden, and the question isn't a question at all. And it's simply, Mr. President, many people have decided that your brain is working the best. It's working better than anyone else's brain has ever worked. What do you have to say to that? Okay. Like, at least there's the decency. It's not good, right? It's still unacceptable, but at least like liberal media has the decency not to genuflect this hard. They do access journalism, which is still ridiculous, but this level of glaze is crazy, dude. Yeah. The difference is the right wing go out of their way to give him easy questions. Not even just easy questions. Sometimes they don't even ask questions at all. They just dick ride. It's crazy. Whereas at least with liberal media, there's still like a veneer of professionalism and like some kind of like aesthetic divergence or aesthetic independence rather from the press office and the press itself. It's the same principle behind like what I was saying, where like liberals choose still to do manufacturing consent. Both parties are invested in empire and the continuation of it. Okay. But liberals at least still choose to do manufactured consent, use like civil society organizations and NGOs to create reasonable ground for why they must invade a place, you know what I mean? Or why they must destabilize a certain country. Republicans are like, we're going to do that because they're apes and they're barbaric and they're primitive and we must bomb them into oblivion. Even Trump recognized that that wasn't a question and a statement. Exactly. Even Trump was like, great question. We need more questions like this. You're a very handsome young man. I love questions like this. It's my favorite type of question to answer, which is not a question at all and simply saying how incredible I am. You can make an argument that access journalists are worse because they appear legitimate, unlike this guy. To a certain degree, I understand what you're saying. But to the average American, I think that they just don't care. They think that that guy is also not just glazing Trump, but simply a professional journalist. So I know what you're saying. I think you're saying that because you're surrounded by liberals. And access journalists only impact liberals who personally believe that they're actually engaging in like serious journalism. Whereas this guy, liberals will look at and go, oh, he's glazing Trump. But from the Republicans' perspective, they hear that guy and go, that's a real journalist. Republicans literally think that guy is a better journalist than, you know, any number of different like liberal journalists.
But it is a bad situation. And I guess I'm going to meet with some government officials. But I mean, much more importantly, and in California, just to revert to it for a second, millions of gallons of water are waiting to be poured down through already the half pipes that are already built. I mean, they've been up for 40 years. And about 20 years ago, they turned off the water. And it's the water that comes from the Pacific Northwest. Some of it comes out of Canada, and it flows there, and it probably has flowed there for 1 million years. And they turned it off, and they routed out to the Pacific. And in the meantime, you don't have water in the hydrants. You don't have water in the sprinkler systems. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And everyone's trying to figure out, why aren't they turning it back? They say it's the Delta smelt. It's a fish. But I find that hard to believe. But we'll figure it out. And without doing that, you're going to continue to have problems.
President, what are you prepared to do, sir, if OPEC doesn't respond to your call to cut oil prices?
Well, we want to see OPEC cut the price of oil, and that will automatically stop the tragedy that's taking place in Ukraine. It's a butchering tragedy for both sides, by the way. A tremendous number of Russian soldiers are dead. Tremendous number of Ukrainian soldiers, and a lot of people are dead from the bombing of the cities. But right now, it's just bullets whacking and hitting men, mostly men, almost in all cases men. And over 1 million men are killed, and they're losing thousands of people a week. It's crazy. It's a crazy war, and it never would have happened if I was president. Would never have happened. This is crazy that it happened, but we want to stop it. Now, one way to stop it quickly...
Mr. President, you said day one you'd be ending the war in Ukraine. It has now been 4 days. When will you be ending the war in Ukraine? We are waiting. I mean, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I said this before. I just don't suspect Donald Trump taking like a super significant sidestep from American foreign policy on Ukraine. And I also don't even think he took a super serious sidestep from American foreign policy on Israel. I think the grand design is still in motion for the region. I just think that he understood that you have to pressure Israel to dial it back on its genocide in Gaza, at least for the time being, if you want to eventually focus on the West Bank operations. Having said that, when people go, you're wrong, the war won't last more than 6 more months. Okay, so this is a great point. Okay, you're not wrong about this. Like, I understand where you're coming from with this, but my point is that is also uniparty. Ukraine only ends because there are no more men to fight it. Okay, like the Ukraine war ends when everybody comes to terms with the reality that Ukraine simply does not have more men to throw into the meat grinder. Okay? That's it. When they have to make a very devastating, politically crippling decision that where they have to decide, like, do we just start, killing 18-year-olds in trench warfare, or do we allow a future generation? Do we allow Ukraine to exist in the future, basically? And I think we're close to that point, at least as far as what I've seen. Like, we're close to, like, when you look at Ukrainian polling on, especially in the aftermath of like conscriptions that began, like forced conscriptions that began in Ukraine, it does seem like either Trump and all of the other like European allies start using ICE or their version of like police to forcibly apprehend and send back Ukrainian men that have left Ukraine, and then they are forced into conscription, right? Or basically they realize that it's no longer feasible. But America's interest in Ukraine does not change. I'm still mad at you for saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend is more impactful than run operations that seem legit and launder Trump's policies. Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend is more impactful? Wait, when? When did I say that? I don't know what you mean by that. If a world war broke out, do you think there would be a draft mandatory? And would the rich still escape the draft? Yes. The rich will always be able to escape the draft. Don't be crazy now. It's so funny seeing the contrast between how leftists will have hours-long debates about how to communicate their ideas about the Overton window or Gramsci. Leftists will write entire books about how most effectively to talk to the masses. Meanwhile, you have this guy being president while just saying the first stupid lie that comes to mind in the most unhinged manner. Yeah, but that works. It especially is successful. It's much harder to tell the truth. It's much easier to tell a lie. That's just the case. That's always been the case, though, especially if that lie is backed by pre-existing forms of oppressive constructs. That's why many right-wingers can, especially smart ones, can present themselves as intellectuals, say stuff like facts over feelings, right? When in fact they're actually simply putting their feelings over facts. They can do that because the pre-existing social hierarchies benefit their argument. That's why Ben Shapiro can point to like police brutality, for example, as a necessity, because that is the established idea that many people have already. Are we just outnumbered by stupid people now? What if it's hopeless? First of all, we've always been outnumbered by stupid people. I'm a stupid person myself. I think everyone is stupid. That's number one. Number two, that's always been the case. Okay? It's just, that's always been the case. There's no, like, what? I think one of the biggest problems is not necessarily that people are stupid, because everyone is stupid. One of the biggest problems is that people are not self-interested. And I know that comes across weird because Americans are so selfish, but I think Americans are so invested in this hyper-individualist American entitlement focused attitude that they literally advocate against their best interests. An argument that I make all the time, and I used to during like the COVID stimmies, when people would come into my chat and say, Hasan, I feel selfish for like taking these COVID stimmies. I feel like I don't need it. There are people who need it more. I was like, dude, what are you saying? Do you think a rich man has ever said, please don't give me stimmies? How do you think how subsidies work? They demand it. They demand it all the time, and they get it by the billions. They get it by the billions through their legal structure And when they don't get more billions that they want, they yell at the government and they punish the government. Okay? Americans that advocate against unions, for example, advocate against their best interest. If you are a worker and you don't want a mechanism to bargain for a fairer contract, to take more of the value that you're creating back and put it in your pocket in the form of benefits, in the form of more autonomy, then you are quite literally advocating against your best interests. That's it. That's it. That's just the way I see it. So it's not necessarily stupidity that is a problem here. I think it's the fact that Americans have by and large, been so captive by pro-corporate, pro-capitalist sentiment that they just genuinely, with regular frequency, advocate against their best interest and mistake that for virtue too. Liberals do this to a certain degree as well. A lot of liberals look to the Democratic Party's incompetence and say, or the Democratic Party's like unpopular policy-making strategies and say, no, you fool, you simpleton, you simply do not understand. They're just behaving like adults. That's why it's unpopular. Good legislation is supposed to be unpopular. Good legislation is supposed to be bipartisan. Meanwhile, the Republicans never actually worry about bipartisanship ever when they're, pushing their agenda. What is bipartisan about politicizing disaster relief, for example? Nothing. Popular does not necessarily mean best. Well, good for us. A lot of the stuff that are popular, a lot of things that are popular are good for the people too. Business owners will always be anti-union. You said that intellectuals are stupid people. Do you think people like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro are just dumb or evil? I think Ben Shapiro is smart. I don't think Charlie Kirk is all that smart. But yes, I think both of them are definitely evil to a certain degree. I think if you are doing right-wing propaganda endlessly, there is a level of evil in you. While I don't believe that anyone is truly good or bad or operate off of that dynamic at all, and that we are all still victim to our social conditions. Okay, we're also still very malleable. I would say that the propagandists in particular, I think are people who I have a different opinion on. Like if you're Tucker Carlson, like I just don't think that there is, like I can't be charitable to you. If you're Tucker Carlson, I don't think you're redeemable, at least in the interim, in the short term.
For OPEC to stop making so much money and to drop the price of oil because they have it nice and high. And if you have it high, that war's not going to end so easily. So OPEC ought to get on the ball and they ought to drop the price of oil, and that war will stop right away.
Mr. President, funding to Los Angeles because of its sanctuary city policy?
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the two things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen. I want the water to come down.
A banger, John Steinbeck quote: "Everyone should read Grapes of Wrath." Yeah, Grapes of Wrath is incredible. I think it is I would say Grapes of Wrath and Steinbeck was definitely. I think it definitely played a radicalizing. I think it definitely played a radicalizing role in my understanding. John Steinbeck says, "And the great owners who must lose their land in an upheaval, the great owners with access to history, with eyes that read history and that know the great fact, when property accumulates in too few hands, it is taken away. And that companion fact, when a majority of the people are hungry and cold, they will take by force what they need. And the little screaming fact that sounds through all history, repression works only to strengthen and knit the repressed." So this is why wealthy libertarians call welfare riot tax. Okay? Wealthy people consider welfare to be riot tax, just so you understand. The great owners ignored the three cries of history. The land fell into fewer hands. The number of the dispossessed increased. And every effort of the great owners was directed at repression. This could be Mao writing this, by the way. Well, I mean, his writing wasn't as... I would say that Mao was maybe a simpler writer than Steinbeck. But the attitude in terms of... The attitude or the wealth accumulation, especially the consolidation of land in private hands is basically the exact same as what Mao had also talked about. The money was spent for arms, for gas to protect the great holdings, and spies were sent to catch the murmuring of revolt so that it might be stamped out. The changing economy was ignored, plans for the change ignored, and only means to destroy revolt were considered, while the causes of revolt went on. What do you think makes the world leaders seemingly give Trump much more leeway and let him do more than more official presidents like Biden? I think all world leaders understand that, like, America at the end of the day is still the most powerful country in the world, although its power is waning on the global stage. So it doesn't matter if it was Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Any American president that operates in this belligerent manner is still going to, in the interim, in the short term, cause our global network of partners to comply. Okay? Through niceties or by force, it does not matter. They will always comply. I mean, look at Israel. Biden is incompetent as hell. Okay? The ICC decisions come down for Benjamin Netanyahu's arrest. Okay? Guess what happens in that process? Poland said, Benjamin Netanyahu could come to Poland. We are going to violate the ICC. It makes the court completely neutered. Okay? It makes the court a bankrupt institution if it's only there to arrest African warlords, okay, and African politicians. Then it's not a real institution at all. The ICC's backbone is the Rome Statute and the very fact that the European powers will maintain its legitimacy. So when you have Germany, which is the most significant defender of the ICC, okay, when you have even, German leadership talking out of both sides of their mouth with respect to, like, whether or not they will actually arrest Benjamin Netanyahu or not, you start to realize that, no, they are just servants of American empire, servants of the American state, which is something that we knew already. And what's important to understand about that is, or the reason why I'm bringing this up in the process of, like, Donald Trump versus Biden, is because they made these decisions under the Biden leadership, right? So it's not like Western leaders were not completely captive to whatever Biden's demands were. They were still very much servile. They still played their role. They still played the role of a loyal servant of empire, right? They did that. And that's it. That's how it works.
Come down to Los Angeles and also go out to all the farmland that's barren and dry. They have land that they say is the equivalent of the land in Iowa, which is about as good as there is anywhere on earth.
It's now officially morning in Japan, chat.
Because they artificially stop the water from going onto the land. So I want two things. I want voter ID for the people of California, and they all want it. Right now you don't have voter ID. People want to have voter identification. You want to have proof of citizenship. Ideally, you have one-day voting, but I just want voter ID as a start, and I want the water to be released, and they're going to get a lot of help from the U.S. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a little while. We'll see you at the site. We'll see you at the site.
The deportation flights, where are they going from? Where are they going to?
Doing very well. We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get, as bad as anybody you've seen. We're taking them out first. Thank you. Thank you.